Appreciate it.
If everyone would take their seats, we're going to get started in about 30 seconds. 30 seconds.
I wasn't sure if that was supposed to be part of it.
Good to see you. Good evening, everyone. It is 6:00 p.m. on Tuesday, May 26, 2026. I'd like to call the meeting of the Peoria City Council to order. I'd also like to welcome everyone who's here in our historic council chambers, as well as our listening audience watching on cable channel 22 and on the City of Peoria YouTube channel. Madam Clerk, the council mics are open. Please call the roll.
Mayor Ali,
Present.
Councilmember Allen,
Present.
Councilmember Carmona,
Here.
Councilmember Sear,
Here.
Councilmember Gordon Young,
Present.
Councilmember Jackson,
Here.
Councilmember Kelly,
Here.
Councilmember Euler,
Here.
Councilmember Riggenbach,
Here.
Councilmember Velpula,
Present.
and Councilmember Vespa.
Here.
You have a quorum present, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Please join me, everyone, and stand for a moment of silent prayer or silent reflection, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Madam Clerk.
We do not have any proclamations, is that correct? So then we would be on to the approval of the minutes.
Councilman Riggenbach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to approve the minutes of the joint city council and town board meeting held May 12th, 2026 as printed.
Seconded by Councilwoman Jackson. Any comments? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
We are at the consent agenda. 26-117 is a communication with a request to approve the 2026 Annual Action Plan for submission to the Department of Housing and Urban Development with a total grant allocation of $2,563,351.03. 26-118 is a communication with a request to concur with recommendation from the Community Development Block Grant Public Services Commission to approve the 2027 CDBG Public Service Application. 26-119 is a communication with a request to approve a 2-year agreement with 2 additional 1-year renewal options with Advanced Medical Transport for Peoria Cares Call Management in an amount not to exceed $98,000 annually. 26-120 is a communication with a request to approve a resolution for proposed match funding for Surface Transportation Block Grant funds for Abington Street from Madison Avenue to Adams Street. The federal funding requested will be $1 million with a local match for construction of no less than $430,000. 26-121 is a communication with request for the following. A, approve a grant award in the amount of $1,275,000 in home funds to MacArthur Senior Flats LLC for the construction of MacArthur Senior Flats. And B, adopt an ordinance approving the redevelopment agreement in the amount of $592,733 with Peoria Opportunities Foundation and MacArthur Senior Flats LLC to be located in the South Village TIF District. 26-122 is a communication with request to adopt an ordinance vacating a 150.06 feet by 16 feet portion of an alley within Block 10 of Berrien's Addition, running parallel to Johnson Street and McBean Street, perpendicular to MacArthur Highway and Saratoga Street, and adjacent to parcel identification numbers 18-08-419-008, 18-08-419-009, 18-08-419-010, 18-08-419-011, 18-08-419-018, 18-08-419-019, 18-08-419-020, 18-08-419-021, and 18-08-419-022 in Peoria, Illinois. 26-123 is a communication with a request to approve the site application for a Class K rental hall liquor license with on-site consumption and retail sale of alcohol for Upstage Theater Company, LLC, doing business as Upstage Theater Company at 416 Hamilton Boulevard, with a recommendation from the Liquor Commission to approve. 26-124 is a communication with a request to approve the site application for a Class B restaurant 50% food liquor license with on-site consumption and retail sale of alcohol for Chola's The Empire, LLC, doing business as Chola's Indian Restaurant at 1301 West Pioneer Parkway, Suite 137, with a recommendation from the Liquor Commission to approve. And 26-125 is a communication with a request to add a subclass 1A 2 a.m. closing hours to an existing Class B restaurant 50% food liquor license with on-site consumption and retail sale of alcohol for Vault Peoria, LLC, doing business as The Vault at 240 Southwest Jefferson Street, with recommendation from the Liquor Commission to approve. And that concludes our consent agenda.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Are there any items to remove from consent? Councilmember Seer?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 26-117 and 26-118, please.
What was the second one?
26-118,
Okay,
17, and 18.
okay. Thank you. Are there any more items to remove? Can I get a motion to approve? Councilman Allen, seconded by Councilwoman Gordon Young. Any discussion? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
26-117 is a communication from the City Manager and Director of Community Development with a request to approve the 2026 Annual Action Plan for submission to the Department of Housing and Urban Development with a total grant allocation of $2,563,351.03.
Councilmember Seer?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Director Doolin, for being here. Just a couple questions. First of all, I don't have anything against 26-117 and 118. I just got a couple questions or a few questions for clarification. On 217, just want to make sure page 2 talks about the administrative costs for all these programs. Can you tell us again, because as I asked you in our meeting, talk to us about the 20%, 10%, and 7.5% for administrative charges.
Thank you, Council. So yeah, with each of our allocations, we're allowed to take a certain percentage of each item for our administrative costs. So these are the funds that pay for our 2 grants coordinators who monitor all of our grants to make sure that we and the organizations that we give money to are not doing things they shouldn't. It pays for one of our housing coordinators, a percentage of Nicole Morrow's salary, and then a percentage of our code enforcement manager's salary as well, because that's one of the eligible activities. So, we always budget to max those out and try to save the general fund money as much as possible by using the federal money first before we'd have to fund those positions through the general fund, and it's salary and benefits for those employees.
Page 7 to page 25, I'm looking at 30 different agency, group, and organization. How did we select these names or these groups, agency groups, or organizations?
Yeah, so what's actually in front of you is an annual requirement by HUD that we have to do an annual plan, essentially getting feedback from public meetings and also soliciting different nonprofits in this community. We ask anyone who's willing to comment, and those are the agencies that have responded or we've worked with that have submitted those comments, and that's kind of why they're a part of that section.
Thank you very much, Director Doolin, for this one. Madam Mayor, just move to approve the request.
Let's take one at a time.
I'm sorry?
Let's take one at a time.
Yeah,
Okay.
26-117.
Okay,
Move
thank
to-
you.
Move to approve the request.
Okay, great. Seconded by Councilmember Allen. Any questions, comments? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Councilmember Seer?
Thank you, Director Doolin. One question on this one. Talk to us a little bit about the last couple years for sure. We got Kei and her organization, Lule, and I don't see their name anywhere about all. I mean, we praise the work they've done the last couple years, but I don't see their name anywhere in this. I mean, how have they done with, are they qualified to receive money now, or are they a non-for-profit organization? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so 2018 is the public service application and priorities set. So the item we just approved set aside 15% of our CDBG money to specifically go towards nonprofit agencies that are providing services to the community. Those agencies, to be eligible, have to meet the application that's in this items and the different criteria. One of those that sometimes we hear feedback on that people don't love, that they think sometimes hinders the ability of certain smaller nonprofits to apply as a requirement for an audit. We've talked about on the council floor why we require the audit and the different guidelines that require it. But one of the things in the application that would allow an agency that might not be as well established as some of the others is they can partner with someone or another organization and have a fiscal sponsor. So smaller organizations that might just be one or two people trying to do good could partner with a larger agency to get some of those funds. And we try to make that information available as much as possible. This item approves the application and the priorities, and then they really go through a summer-long process, and we really thank our CDBG Public Service Commission, who spends kind of the hours and hours grading the applications, and then the recommendation for funding will come back to council in September or October, as we traditionally do.
Okay. Last question, and it's a combination of actually the last two items, but we're looking at the investment of about $13 million for, I think it was 48 homes, I saw it in there. How can we control or try to control costs of new homes when we see, I've been here 10 years now, I see homes like pretty much the same area also, like, 48 homes, $13 million, you're looking at $260,000 per home. Then we have some other organization we gave money to that it's like $250,000 per homes. And then we're going to talk tonight about the Expo Garden. I mean, how can we budget for the right size home and the right amenities and really stay within our budget?
Yeah, so I think you're referencing maybe an item that was on the consent agenda in MacArthur Flats and just kind of the overall affordable housing projects. And when you divide it up between the tax credits and whatnot, I will tell you that the housing providers are not the ones making money, as much money from it as you might imagine with the cost per home. When you look at the tax credit process, just the design of it, you have people buying the tax credits. So you have firms, private investment banks who are making profit from it. You have architecture firms, engineering firms, a lot of layers of bankers. At the federal level with these tax credit projects and financing institutions set up a lot of bureaucracy, and all of those people take a chunk of that money as you go. So that's why you see those costs rising. The other part of it is, construction costs these days are continuing to go up and up and up. And so when you have those units, I think, with those projects, when we look at the budget and, they have to submit a pro forma to show how it pencils out, what they're being able to take back and put in reserves. Often the nonprofit agency and the housing developer are deferring their developer fees to later in the year to make sure the project work. It is a good question with rising costs, how they're going to continue to be built. And I don't have a good answer to that, specifically with affordable housing. I think we're continuing to see the struggles of nonprofit agencies trying to be able to afford housing in our community. I think one of the difference when we talk about the next items with Expo and housing cost, it's a much different market and different kind of ability to do so. I think that we can kind of try to encourage people to keep the costs down, but it costs the same amount of money to build a house in Peoria as it roughly does in Chicago, but you can sell the house in Chicago for a couple $100,000 more. It's really hard for communities like Peoria to kind of continue to be able to have new housing built. I think one of the strategies that we've done really successful is being able to make the land available for free, specifically with Churchview Gardens, the McKinley Habitat project down there, MacArthur Flats tonight. Those are the type of projects we're able to see. And part of the big reason is because we were able to accumulate the vacant land and put it together. And that's one huge cost that a developer doesn't have to spend like they might in other communities. So continue to explore that way, but it will continue to be all hands on deck for housing going forward as costs continue to go up. I wish I had a better answer, but if I did, we'd be doing it and we wouldn't see those costs escalate.
Thank you very much, Director Doolin. Madam Mayor, if I could make a motion. Move to concur with the recommendation for item 26-118.
Okay, seconded by Councilwoman Gordon Young. Any questions or comments? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
We're at regular business. 26-126 is a communication from the City Manager and Corporation Council with a request to approve an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Peoria and the Board of Education, City of Peoria School District 150, for the redevelopment of the Exposition Gardens property.
Thank you. Which one of you will take this? Council Hayes?
Thank you, Your Honor. So as council knows, we've acquired the former Exposition Garden site and approached District 150 about some critical elements of that site that we felt were important for the city to resolve. And we'll be providing these outcomes as an update to our RFQ that's already out on the street. We've identified on the parcel an area that the city needs to establish a second access point for this large subdivision. The school district owns the property where you might be familiar with the back entrance to the fair. So it's on University Street north of Northmore, quite a bit north, at the very edge of the school district's property. That in fact is school district property. So the city wanted to acquire that because with a 200 resident subdivision, having all of that traffic on Northmore, particularly conflicting with the early morning school traffic and the school let-out traffic, wouldn't be conducive and certainly not optimal. And so the only other viable access point would be out to University. And so the city made that a priority with the school district. In addition, the city approached the school district with the idea that an ultimate developer might maximize the investment potential and the return of their investment, but also the return of property taxes to both the city and the school district if more Northmore frontage was available for redevelopment. So the school district agreed to exchange outright with us one small parcel on Northmore and agreed to provide any eventual developer with the opportunity to flip the Northmore School parking lot to behind the school to open up more area on Northmore for redevelopment. Consistent with that set of thoughts, the school district presently has a set of easements across the property for access, particularly for circulation for Northmore School to get in and out of the footprint there. And so there's a roadway across the parcels that basically divides the Northmore frontage parcels in half that the school district presently uses to circulate traffic in and out of Northmore School rather than accessing Northmore right there at the school. The school district feels that's a critical access and safety point for their operations. They were amenable to the city providing the developer with the opportunity, if they wanted to further open up those Northmore parcels, to replace that further to the north, so that there'd still be circulation within the parcel between Northmore School and the Richwoods High School footprint for those safety ingress and egress issues, but give the developer even more area on the Northmore frontage to have an open footprint. So the school district has accommodated the city in those issues. What the school district wanted back were a few things. First of all, they wanted some property between the existing Expo property and their bus maintenance facility to build an additional facilities building. And the city felt that that was positive because that would create a buffer between this residential area and where hundreds of buses park on a regular basis. And so we were amenable to that, even though that, along with the frontage right up between the two properties, winds up being more on a square footage basis. In many people's view, the access to university and the Northmore frontage is far more valuable than that interior square footage. So there's no compensation of dollars flowing back and forth between these two taxpayer entities, all supported by our residents and the 150 residents, because it's out of one taxpayer pocket into another. But the other reason for that was if you looked at the value, we felt there was a fair exchange of value. There were a couple of other conditions that the school district asked for. One was to not have this be proposed as a tax increment finance district, and that was not the city's ambition in any regard. Two, that we could include it in the urban enterprise zone, which was important for us because that will assist the developer with some of the costs of development by way of no sales tax on the goods used in those, no state sales tax on those as part of the enterprise zone credit. The city has a modest property tax abatement as part of our enterprise zone program that the school district does not presently participate in. And so this was part of the district's concern about not having increment be impaired by any of this redevelopment. We still are asking the school district to consider participating in the enterprise zone tax abatement, but that is not a condition of this agreement either way. I think that the district's other issues that they wanted as part of the deal, that it would be about 200 residences, and that we would contain the commercial, the neighborhood commercial type development to the Northmore frontage lots. Those were consistent with our, ambitions for the property. So those are conditions as well for the district. I don't think I've missed anything, but if I have, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. We anticipate that the district would undertake this at their June 8th meeting. And so we may be, to make certain that developers take all this into account, extending the RFQs a little bit to be able to issue this clarification after the district has approved it on June 8th, and giving the developers time to absorb these conditions. So there's a few other details in here, but I felt that those were the details were important for the city council's consideration. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Council Hayes, for those highlights and some of that detail. I know that these discussions have been taking place now, I think, for almost 8 or 9 months with the school district. There's been discussions with board members. There's been discussions with the superintendent's leadership team, and certainly you and the school district's legal counsel have kind of worked out a lot of these details. So thank you very much for those efforts. Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had a chance to connect with City Manager Urick earlier with some questions, and I just want to share those because I think that some of my colleagues also may have some of these same inquiries. As you all were going through this process, was there ever a discussion point on the city just buying the land from the school district?
In the conversation that we had, we really didn't discuss us buying the land outright. What we really talked about is there were needs on both parties' sides, right? The school district had needs to kind of fill out some space around their athletic facilities. We needed that access up on University Street. So we felt that really an exchange was probably in the best interest. As Corporation Counsel mentioned, in addition, there was some of that commercial land that the district really doesn't need along Northmore that could potentially be valuable. So we looked at that as part of that swap.
And if I recall correctly, I believe we have some remaining funds of the grant that we got from the state of Illinois, which we utilized to purchase Expo Gardens initially. Would this have been an eligible purchase with those remaining funds?
I do think it would have been eligible if we had gone that route. But I do think that, when we approached the state, we specifically asked about the fairground piece and talked about that as being an important part that we wanted to access those funds and use the land bank funds for that purpose. And we specifically got that in writing from them saying, yes, this would be eligible and we would be able to be reimbursed for that. We did not ask the state at that time about that university piece.
And by no means, I don't pretend to be an economic development specialist. I'm probably a neophyte at this point. But do you feel that us taking the TIF district opportunity off the table, do you feel that that's possibly us taking away an incentive that we could utilize later? Or do you feel like us going down the potential enterprise zone is more advantageous for this type of development?
Well, I think that as we looked at this, there's a couple of factors that are in play with this. We didn't think that the TIF would be as valuable. I mean, it certainly could be utilized to help a developer to recover some of the costs of the infrastructure work that they would need to put in place. That would be eligible. But all of the new home construction is not eligible for reimbursement. So that there's nothing there that would be eligible because that TIF law is pretty straightforward about new construction isn't eligible for reimbursement. So looking at that, and we had the school district that said that they didn't really want a TIF in that area because of all the places inside the Peoria Public Schools boundaries. This is the only place where a large-scale residential development can help to build their tax base. So that's why we looked at that from the very beginning of not really saying that we should look at establishing a TIF district here. Now, an enterprise zone does provide some benefits to the developer. It provides a sales tax exemption on building materials. That's not small. I mean, when you're buying a lot of cement and pipe and things that are going to go into the ground, there's an expense to that, and that would save them the state tax on there. Plus, I think that there's some opportunities for a property tax abatement, not for all of the taxing districts, but for some.
The developer's approach, there are other projects that they've done that are representative of their ability to do it. Look into their financial background and other interactions they've had with other units of government. So it's a little different than accepting a proposal or a proposal with alternatives.
So would that be fair to say it's another way for us, since we're the owner of the land, to try to keep as much control as possible of what would be developed on that piece of land, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Since my colleague, Councilman Allen, brought it up, I need to ask again. Sorry, Mr. Manager. Did we receive our grant yet from the state?
We have not received our grant funds
Okay.
yet from the state.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Okay, Councilmember Allen, you want to move us forward?
Sure thing. I'd like to make a motion to approve item 26-126, please.
Can I get a second? Seconded by Councilmember Kelly. Continued discussion, Councilmember Regenbach?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to say thank you to Corporation Counsel and the manager for bringing this forward. I think for those of us that have been supporting the concept of this project from the beginning, this is a significant step. And to see the collaboration with the school district is something that I think all of us as taxpayers can be proud of, because clearly there were needs on both sides, and to be able to exchange the property in a manner like this without expending other taxpayers' money. I think that comes out as a win for everybody. And I know we'll be discussing what kind of incentives need to be offered to make this project successful in the future, but I think this agreement sets the stage for the next step, and I wholeheartedly support it.
Great.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yes, you're welcome. I agree with you, Councilman Riggenbach. I think it's a win-win for both taxing bodies as government bodies as well as eventually for the city. Councilman Velpula?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just have one question. When was the RFP issued? RFQs?
So the RFQ went out a little over a month ago, and our hope, looking back at our community development director, I believe it was a little over a month ago, and it's due the first or the second week, June 8th is when the responses are due.
So my question to you is how many, so if you are closing the RFQs by, let's say in 2 weeks, now we make a change now, is it going to affect the development?
Okay. We have a motion on the floor to approve the intergovernment agreement. Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
26-127 is a communication from the City Manager and Corporation Council with a request to approve the following. A, an agreement with Core Construction Services of Illinois, Inc. for construction services for the D. Hinks Amphitheater on the Peoria Riverfront for a maximum price to be determined. And item A requires 2/3 vote of council members voting, no less than 6 votes. And B, an agreement with Terra Engineering Ltd. for design and engineering services for the D. Hinks Amphitheater on the Peoria Riverfront. And this item as well requires a 2/3 vote of council members voting, no less than 6 votes, and we need separate votes on each, please.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Council Hayes?
Thank you once again. One of the beautiful things about being a public organization is when I make an error, some of our citizens point that out. I should have referred to this as Festival Park rather than Riverfront Park, so I want to apologize for any confusion. As the council knows, we struck a deal with the Hengst Foundation to fund amphitheater in Festival Park, just north of the Murray Baker Bridge. So part of that agreement, when the council got to terms with the Hengst Foundation, was that the Hengst Foundation had pre-selected the design professional team as well as the construction team. And so you'll notice that both of these items require a supermajority vote in order to approve that method of contracting that we're using. One of the privileges of being a home rule entity is that we were able to make that agreement, and now that majority is required to live up to that part of the agreement. We've spent some time getting to a contract. The preferred method of contracts isn't our typical contract method because we don't use AIA contracts very often. And so Core Construction operates based on what is called a maximum guaranteed price contract. So they are the construction manager. Once the design elements are finalized, they will come back to the city with a guaranteed maximum price. If the city approves that, then we would agree to pay that price upon the completed project, and they accept any risk of cost overruns during the project. For that reason, that element is not presented today because the design isn't completed yet. So Terra has a separate contract, which is also on an AIA template that marries with and coordinates with the terms and the methods in the AIA contract environment for approvals of design, approvals of costs, all of the construction documents and construction engineering. All of that is very elaborately set forth in these construction documents. In addition, these documents are modified by the reality that the city finds itself in, is that we've got a $11 million project that we're contracting for. And the Hanks Foundation is able to approve the design and all of the payments. And so these contracts protect the city as it relates to the Hanks Foundation's control of these things, and makes clear that all of the cycles of approval and things like that have to go through the Hanks Foundation. And in addition, all of the payment of funds, both to Terra and to CORE, are dependent upon the approval and funding by the Hanks Foundation. And so those terms and conditions should give the council some comfort about, well, where's the money coming from, and are we exposed to risk here? And where the city is exposed to some costs is that we agreed with the Hanks Foundation that we do remedial site work if that's found in the assessments. And so if there's any sort of environmental cleanup or anything like that found as they do their pre-construction analysis, which we're also responsible for, that they will report that to the city council, and we'll need to take care of that. And so we don't have those costs yet either, but we will get those costs based on estimated basis before the work starts, and those will get approved through the city managers. So we don't have a complete amount of what the city might be exposed to, but there'll be some costs there. There's also been some discussions in the preliminary design phase about what's going to be included within the Hanks Foundation funding, and whether there's any alternatives or supplemental funding required for the actual construction of the project. And that may be a conversation we have to have here in a few weeks, not only with the design professionals about what might be in the project and whatnot, but also with the city council and some external funders, if there are additional things that we want to pursue, that we feel like this would be good for this project, we may be back to the city council with those additional items. But the city right now isn't committed to anything beyond the site work required to make the place ready for this construction. I don't know if you've got any questions. This is a huge document compared to what we're normally approving, along the lines of some of our largest RFPs, but I'd be happy to answer any questions as best I'm able. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Hayes. Do you know when construction is scheduled to start?
In fact, we don't have a construction schedule because that's part of the task that Terra Engineering is going to undertake, and that'll be more predictable once the design is approved. So until we get through that design phase, we're not going to be able to make an accurate prediction about construction. So that document has not yet been created.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Councilmember Seer?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to approve the item 26-127A.
Seconded by Councilmember Gordon Young. Continued discussion, Councilmember Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Either Mr. Manager or Mr. Corporation Counsel. The funding for this comes from the Hanks Foundation. And I don't even know if we're a pass-through. We're not even a pass-through, are we, as far as the money is concerned? That's not really a big part of my question.
There'll be a
but-
mutually controlled escrow account for the funds that Hanks Foundation has assured us are on account with their foundation. And so we'll be working through those type of escrow, similar to a construction escrow.
My question is, what happens if we have a shortfall? Who is responsible?
So on the front end, where we're at today, we'll have an identifiable amount under contract with Terra for the design of the amphitheater. They will give us estimates of the city's responsibility for site work prior to construction. So we'll be able to identify that in the coming weeks. But as to any amounts beyond the Hanks Foundation funding, we don't have any exposure to that today. And if we were to enter into an agreement to expand the project beyond the donation amount, we would come back to City Council for that approval. So if you're saying, what is the exposure for shortfall? If there isn't any exposure to shortfall at this point because the Hanks Foundation is going to fund up to $11 million. And if we agree to something beyond that, that'll be theirs. The other thing that protects us in this evolution is that once we strike the maximum guaranteed price, the actual construction costs, if they go beyond that maximum guaranteed price, that is the responsibility of the construction management, core construction. I will tell you that if we make a change during construction, a change order, that then would be worked out, and the responsibility for that amount would be worked out before the change order is approved. So as it relates to a shortfall today, we are not exposed to any shortfall.
Okay.
Councilman, if I could just add one
Yes.
other point, just the cost estimates that they're working on, they are building in, just like we do with our road projects and our capital projects, they're building in contingencies into that. So what they're estimating is their construction price is carrying about a 10% contingency line, just to make sure that they've got that coverage there.
I didn't mean to go that deeply. All I kind of wanted to know, because I heard what Corporation Counsel said about how the core contract is, et cetera, and I'm aware that there's contingencies. I just wanted to make sure it's leak-proof. That's all. Whether there's any other way that this could cost us money, that's
The only other way that it would cost us money if we came back to you and said, we think this would be a nice addition to the area, it's not
but that-
contemplated in the
yeah, that would
contract.
be our,
And then is a policy decision of this body to make that determination.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Councilmember Allen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a clarifying question for City Manager Urick. What budget line item will we be funding the pre-construction assessment out of our budget?
Are you talking about the environmental assessment?
Yeah.
So we'll be taking that out of the capital budget. That's normally where we'll take those dollars out. When we have a good idea of where that cost is going to be, we'll come back to you with that budget to be adopted as in a budget amendment. We did not build that into the budget earlier this year or earlier last year when we adopted the 26 budget. So
Okay.
that'll come back to you.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Manager. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're very welcome. The motion is to approve item A for the agreement with Core Construction. Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Councilmember Seer, just a second. Okay, there we go. Councilmember Seer?
Move to approve the recommendation for 26-27, item B.
Thank you. Seconded by Councilmember Gordon Young. Any discussion? Please cast your ballots.
Madam Mayor,
Oh, okay, hold on.
my light on?
We're working on your light. Councilmember Seer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry about that.
Sorry.
I wanted to ask a question earlier. Mr. Hayes, the question is really for Mr. Manager, but Mr. Hayes used two words that kind of got my attention. Supplemental funding got my attention here. Mr. Manager, we don't have, you just said your answer, I believe, was Mr. Allen's question. There's no fund allocated at all, not even the CIP or in the budget right now, correct?
That is correct. Not yet. I think what we wanted to do, once we get an idea of what our environmental costs are going to be, then we'll come back to you with that budget amendment. That's, again, just to present what we're going to do. And then what we'll likely do, and this is probably a conversation with our finance director, since this is a pass-through, we'll appropriate the funds as part of the budget when we know that we're starting construction. And then you'll be able to see, and we'll track everything for you and build that into the budget so you can see that. So with the corresponding revenue that comes from the Hanks Foundation.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're very welcome. The motion is to approve item B, which is the agreement with Terra Engineering. Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
26-128 is a communication from the City Manager and Corporation Council with a request to approve a sole source agreement with Lodestar Claims and Risk Services for third-party administration services for the city's general liability claims program for a 3-year agreement at a total estimated cost of $346,413, and this item requires a 2/3 vote of council members voting no less than 6 votes.
Council Hayes?
Thank you, Your Honor. We have a third-party administrator presently, it's Gallagher Bassett. We've used them since 2023 when we switched from another third-party administrator. We're wanting to improve the services there. I think from time to time, some of the council members are aware of our claims process, which can be difficult, both from a city staff perspective as well as our residents who are processing those claims. In an effort to seek a third-party administrator with a better focus on the city's business, we've identified that our current third-party administrator for workman's compensation matters serves our city at an excellent level, and the staff believes that a shift to that TPA would provide better services, not only for city staff purposes, but also as it relates to the experience of our residents who are filing claims. And for that reason, we're not going to go back out for bids. We're going to ask the city council to approve a sole source to expand our current relationship with our existing third-party administrator on workman's comp to handle our liability matters. And so that's the reason the matter's before the council and the reason that it requires a 2/3 vote of the council members voting.
Thank you, Council. Can I get a motion to approve this? Moved by Councilmember Euler, seconded by Councilmember Valpula. Any questions? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
26-129 is a communication from the City Manager and Chief of Police with a request to approve the sole source annual subscription contract with ShotSpotter, Inc. for ShotSpotter Flex, a gunfire location alert and analysis service, with a recommendation of a 3-year renewal in the amount of $316,035 per year. This item requires 2/3 vote of council members voting no less than 6 votes.
Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to turn the floor over to our police chief, Brad Dixon, to talk about this contract renewal.
Chief?
Thank you. Good evening, council, mayor. This is my first, certainly not the last request in front of this council. And I'm here tonight to talk about the ShotSpotter technology. So this is a technology we've had since 2013. It was expanded in 2015. Our current setup covers roughly, it's 2 sections. It covers roughly 6 square miles in the city. This is a budgeted item that we have within the police department. We're not asking for any general funds to be allocated. This is something that we've planned for and have in our budget. You'll see the increase from our previous 3-year contract. It's a 5%, one-time 5% increase for the first year, and then it remains flat for the next 2 years. So ShotSpotter, I'll cover it briefly. We do have some reps from ShotSpotter here, and I have my data analyst here. If there are some questions, we'd be happy to answer those for you. But it's an acoustic technology that uses sensors to detect gunfire. It's a highly utilized technology in the city. We use it quite often. It provides situational awareness for the responding officers that are going on these calls. The officers get there faster. The ShotSpotter alerts come in faster than they are dispatched, so they get on scene quicker and they're able to provide aid if there's somebody injured. It also allows us, it's such a pinpoint accurate technology, we're able to locate casings and forensic technology that we use to build these cases. So just locating the casings that we find on scene, we're then able to utilize other technologies that we have. We can do things like, believe it or not, there's some repetitive gunfire that we're able to respond to appropriately with our some of our federal partners and make cases, do search warrants, things like that. And finally, I want to talk about the transparency page we have. If you haven't seen that, I would encourage you to go look at our transparency page. We have probably the most thorough data set I've ever seen when it comes to ShotSpotter. It goes all the way back to 2014, once we were able to get some data. It's very easy to use and navigate. You can go year by year, you can look at total. In keeping the theme of community policing, there's certainly some strong feelings sometimes with ShotSpotter, but you can't say we're not being transparent because we provide everything. It's all on there, the borders, the shots that come in, and you can track it year to year. So I think that's another a big plus the way Peoria does it. I was recently at a Chiefs conference talking to some of my colleagues, and I won't name them specifically, but I think they're underutilizing the technology. And the ShotSpotter folks are here tonight, and they reached out to ShotSpotter and want to know how Peoria utilizes the technology, which I thought was great. So in short, I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I'm here tonight to ask for your support for this continued use of this technology.
Thank you, Chief. You said the ShotSpotter representatives are here.
They are.
Can we hear from them?
Sure.
Yes, can you introduce yourselves, please? Thank you.
Good evening, Your Honor, members of the Peoria City Council. My name is Kevin Johnson. I've been with the company known as Sound Thinking, formerly known as ShotSpotter. Prior to that, I spent 30 years with the Chicago Police Department, retired as a rank of deputy chief, and implemented ShotSpotter in Chicago. What I can say what Peoria is doing with ShotSpotter is outstanding. And I'm going to put that lightly. It is outstanding. It's a pure example of what you do when you have police officers working, the police department working to respond to gunfire. Get there faster, save lives, get that evidence, the ballistic evidence, build those into cases. The goal is to get rid of those serial trigger pullers in your community. And at the same time, they're very transparent in what they do. I see stories every other day what Peoria has done in terms of getting arrests, responding, leveraging public safety technology the right way. I truly say that they're a model for public safety technology in this state. Any other questions?
Thank you. Do we have any questions from our representatives? Thank you very much. Certainly, our police have found value in ShotSpotter, and it's endorsed by our new chief, and it was endorsed by our prior chief, and certainly you found value in this tool, and
Yeah, and if I could add, it's not the only technology. ShotSpotter is not the end all be all, but it is definitely at the very front of our crime response, our violent crime response. It allows us to get that evidence, and it's a great data set we use. So it's a tool in our toolbox. It's a powerful tool, and we'd like to continue our partnership.
that's a good point. Thank you. It's not all-inclusive, it's not perfect, right?
Right.
Because 4th of July, we're going to get a lot of things that are not
Right.
real shot spotters, right? There's going to be,
That's correct. We'll turn it down for 4th of July.
okay. All right. Councilwoman Gordon Young?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was actually going to ask, how does the 4th of July around that time affect the ShotSpotter system?
Yeah, so the folks from ShotSpotter can probably talk about it better, but what we do is basically turn it down, turn it off. We can't have everybody going, there's too many fireworks in the city. So we turn it down. It's different than how we do it on New Year's. But during those high periods, I think it's around 9 o'clock or somewhere around there, it gets turned down a little bit, and then it comes back on after the fireworks display. There's a couple hour where we turn it down.
Okay. Thank you. I just find it really a great tool and really interesting. It's unfortunate that we have, shots fired in the area, but it's good to know that our officers can respond to the area as quickly as possible. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Do you want to make a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Is there a
Item
second?
number,
Seconded
yeah.
by Councilmember Jackson. Any other discussion? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
26-130 is a communication from Councilmember John Kelly with a request to approve a resolution providing for an abatement review board to consider an urban decay abatement ordinance.
Councilmember Kelly?
Madam Mayor. This proposal seeks to use our urban decay ordinance. This urban decay ordinance offers 10 years' worth of tax abatement on new structures. It also allows for, and the land is not taxed, the land goes up, we can help defray people's state income tax with that additional money. These incentives last for 10 years. The abatement of the assessed value of the improvements, any new single-family owner-occupied home, but that includes duplexes and townhomes as well. The abatement is from all taxing bodies which tax the expo area. This is the same as TIF. When we do a TIF district, all the districts are forced to participate. When we do enterprise zone, that is optional among the various taxing districts. And as I think the manager or the Corporation Council said, District 150 has chosen not to help us with the enterprise zone. They do not participate. I've had discussions, as you all know, with almost everybody, and sent out my little comparison sheet and whatnot. But what I hear from time to time, even though I believe that this would result in the best subdivision we could possibly have, which we really need in our city. I think more discussion, more questions need to be answered, that sort of thing. And so I am going to move to table this item for a future date.
Okay, is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Euler to table. Any discussion? And there's no other discussion, it looks like, but I just want to say, Councilman Kelly, and I do respect your proposal. I don't think it's a fit I don't think the urban decay initiative is a fit for the expo area. I don't believe that it's a decayed or blighted area. I also think that it is in contrast to the agreement that we all unanimously approved, that in item 10 says that we won't have a TIF. And as you indicated, this is very similar to a TIF, and it delays property taxes for about 10 years. And I think that's in counter to the agreement or understanding that we have with the school district. So because of that, I'm going to vote no to the table motion, just because I think that even bringing it back, it does not align and doesn't fit, in my opinion. Councilmember Kelly?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Even though my remarks are not relevant to the motion on the floor, which is to table, not to discuss the item.
I understand.
Since we're into that, I would just say that there are many differences between these various things. And I would hope that in the course of our city manager and our staff talking to developers, they do not restrict their discussion to TIFs, which we're not going to do, enterprise zone, which they favor, and that's fine, and this item as well. None of us are going to be in the discussion, but as we table this, we reserve it for future consideration, and I think that to be uninformed as a developer or whatever of that fact would prejudices the conversation. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. The motion is to table. Please cast your ballots. Motion passes with 2 nays, Ali Jackson and Gordon Young. Madam Clerk?
We are at unfinished business. Do we have any unfinished business? No, then we'll move on to new business.
Do we have any new business? Then I would like to bring up one brief new business item, and that's to just remind everyone on council, and I guess everyone in our community, to let you know that next week, we will be celebrating 50 years of our sister city relationship with Friedrichshafen, Germany. 50 years, sister city relationship. So it was 50 years ago that Mayor Dick Carver, and hopefully I say this right, Oberbürgermeister, which is the mayor over there, Dr. Mass Gruenbeck, they signed our sister city agreement. Since then, the lives of citizens on both cities, both Peoria and Friedrichshafen, have been enriched by the warm friendship that continues to grow. There will be a delegation here from Germany next week. There's several different activities planned, dinners, events. They'll be at various locations within our city, celebrating, enjoying, meeting people, and really continuing this important friendship that we have. So I encourage those that can participate in the various activities that come about to be present. Thank you. Okay, Madam Clerk,
We are at citizens' opportunity to address the city council.
we have one, and this is Molly Cadigan.
For letting me have my 5 minutes. I live on the West Bluff. I've lived there for 12 years. And for 12 years, the citizens of my neighborhood, the West Bluff Neighborhood Council, has put up with fireworks on a daily business, and not, unfortunately, just the 4th of July. There have been repeated calls to the police department to stop it. 5 years ago, I called because my garage roof was set on fire by someone setting off illegal fireworks, basically adjacent to my garage. Nothing was done. My insurance rates went up. Last year, they started on the 5th of June. I called the police department and asked them to please address the issue because wherever it was, 2 blocks away, was so loud that my windows were shaking. Now, aside from that, I live in a neighborhood which is made up primarily of older people, such as myself, many of whom are Vietnam vets Afghan vets, many of whom suffer from PTSD. If you are not aware, many people who have PTSD are set off by fireworks. There are also people in my neighborhood, myself included, who rescue dogs, who are fearful, who are basically survivors of abuse, who are terrified by loud noises. I have two right now who basically were on very expensive calmative medication from the 5th of June until the 18th of August, when the fireworks in my neighborhood finally stopped. Repeated phone calls basically accomplished nothing. I'm just asking that someone from this council or the mayor address this issue so that from here on out, illegal fireworks can be stopped. I realize that the police have more important things to do, but the fact that my garage was set on fire, the fact that last year people across the street from me probably set off thousands of dollars worth of fireworks, which landed all over my yard. One hit the screen on my front porch and burned a hole in my screen. It caused damage to the windowsills on my living room windows. And I spent the next 2.5 weeks cleaning up fireworks residue from my front yard, which included little gunpowder pellets. Now, I'm also a rabid environmentalist, and many of you may not know that fireworks basically will cause wildlife to leave their dens. I live in an area which is surrounded by deer and with rabbits. They will leave their dens and they will abandon their young. Birds will leave their nests and never return. So this is not just a laughable, this is the 4th of July we'll celebrate. This has been ongoing every year, and it keeps getting larger and larger. This year, they started the week before Memorial Day. So the window just keeps getting larger and larger and larger. I have had people who have set up PVC piping in the middle of the intersection between Machen and Armstrong, thereby making it impossible for anybody to go in any direction from Machen to or from their homes by car. I called the police and they said, well, we already talked to the guy. And I said, well, it must not have done any good because he's still out there setting off M80s in the middle of the intersection. This goes by every single year, and we are all fed up. It has got to stop. It is basically, it's destroying our neighborhood. It's destroying the safety of people who live in that neighborhood. I have people who are basically elderly, who are shut-ins, who have no place else to go. Last year, in fact, after Bradley or whoever does the city fireworks, I thought to myself, okay, it's now 3 o'clock in the morning. It's probably safe to let my dogs out in the backyard because they hadn't even gone to the bathroom all day because I couldn't walk them anywhere because there were fireworks everywhere. As soon as I let them out, there was this triage of fireworks going off up and down both sides of Machen. My dogs burst through my picket fence and went running in opposite directions, and it took me 2.5 hours to catch them because they were terrified and didn't know where to go. I'm 77 years old. I shouldn't have to chase my dogs because they're terrified in their own yard. And I'm a law-abiding citizen, and I would just like to see that more law-abiding citizens are protected from illegal use of fireworks. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cadigan. Madam Clerk?
We do not have an executive session, so we're at adjournment.
Can I get a motion to adjourn, moved by Councilmember Allen, seconded by Councilmember Kelly? Please cast your ballots. Thank you for your service.
How was your weekend?